This video will demonstrate what it's like to be a student in a DBL learning activity. First, students will read the problem that you provide them in the task window. This can be text, an image, a video, or other things you would like to provide the students with. This example is for a literature class, where students are to determine the nature of a passage, that is, its classification, its features, its properties, so that they can begin to see the patterns they read in literature. This is the passage. The house was really a small castle. It seemed to be all towers, little towers with long pointed spires on them, sharp as needles. They looked like huge dunces' caps or sorcerers' caps. Next, the students will refer to the first decision point in the decision model, which in this example asks, is this an example of figurative or literal language? If they know, they will choose figurative. If they don't know which to choose, they can click How do I decide, which will take them to a learning module made by you, the professor. In the learning module, the students are given the definition and example of both options. This learning module defines literal language as follows. Literal language is language which uses words, phrases, or sentences in their real or actual meaning. It means what it says. Then it gives an example of a descriptive question. The flames of the fire were growing hot, exactly as it states. Then the learning module gives a definition and example for figurative language as follows. Figurative language uses words, phrases, or sentences to suggest something other than exactly what the words are saying. It also uses sounds to add emotion or beauty. Her anger grew like a roaring fire. The learning module proceeds to show another example of literal language for the student's benefit. It also gives an example for figurative language. So then, in DBL learning modules, students receive just enough just-in-time instruction to be able to make a correct decision. They can go through and practice as well, where they have to determine whether the passage is literal or figurative. She ran down the street, the green knee socks making her legs look like wild dandelion stems that had somehow lost their heads. The students should choose figurative because of the words like wild dandelion stems that had somehow lost their heads. They will continue through the rest of the learning module's practice problems. Then they will return to the first decision point with the original problem and determine whether the passage is using literal or figurative language. Because the passage includes sharp as needles and huge like dunces' caps or sorcerers' caps, the student should select figurative based on what we learned in the learning module. The student will then move on to the next decision point. Does this passage contain an example of comparison, substitution, sound, or wordplay? If they are not sure which choice is correct, they can again click How do I decide to be taken to a learning module that will teach them how to make correct decisions, providing definitions for all four along with opportunities to practice. Based on this learning module, they know the correct choice is comparison. Students continue to repeat this process for each sequential decision point in the module until they reach the last decision point. If they made a wrong choice at any point in the decision model, the feedback setting for this assignment will show them where they made a wrong choice. Students can take problems through the model until they master the experience. The software's feedback level for the student's wrong choice will depend on what setting the instructor chooses. To learn more about the different levels of feedback that you, as an instructor, could implement in your decision-based learning activity, please refer to the videos describing the levels of feedback. Then discuss with the decision-based learning consultant which feedback level you should proceed with. The student will ultimately know how well they perform on particular parts of the decision model. If at any point a student wishes to know how well they are performing, they can click Save and Exit, then click Progress to the left. Here they can see their progress through the decision model. The different colors indicate whether they've made correct or incorrect decisions at each decision point in the model. Green means the student made mostly correct responses at that decision point, and red means they made mostly wrong decisions at that decision point. Any yellow color between the green and the red help the students know where their problem spots might be. The thickness of the line indicates a greater number of problems have been taken through this particular decision point. By clicking on the Details button above the decision points, students can know what percentage of the time they were correct when they took a problem through this decision point. They can get more specific information by clicking on the individual options. In this case, it allows them to see how well they performed with a problem where the correct decision was figurative. This information is available to the student for every decision point in the decision model. A student can analyze this information and decide what they want to practice. In this case, whether a problem is figurative or literal. This allows them to see where the gaps are in their understanding, to practice making decisions specific to this decision point, and strengthen those gaps themselves.